Hi, I'm Ryan Langlish, and this is the 5th video in a series about the 7 habits of highly effective game designers, based on the popular self-help book by Stephen Covey. If you've missed the other videos in the series, I'll link those down in the description. You can check those out first. But today we're talking about habit number 5, which is seek first to understand and then to be understood. So it's very much human nature to want to explain our own perspective before we really look to understand where someone else is coming from. That's just kind of our default mode. And so when I was trying to think of how this kind of relates to being a game designer and how to be a more effective game designer, and the area that immediately came to mind was playtesting. So as you go through the process of making a game, there comes a point where, maybe you feel the game is looking pretty good and you want to start getting some feedback from people besides yourself. And so you're going to get the game in front of other people and start getting feedback, whether it's getting a group to play test it or a single player or something. You're looking for people who haven't been exposed to your game yet, and seeing what are their thoughts on it and getting that kind of feedback to get direction moving forward in the design. And in this process of getting feedback, one very common pattern that I've observed myself is where you're playtesting the game and one of the playtesters brings up a suggestion or a comment, and as they're saying it, I'm sitting there as the designer and I'm thinking in my head, oh, I know what they're talking about. And I remember I spent a bunch of time on my own thinking about this same question, and because of these criteria, I couldn't do what they're saying here, and it made more sense to do this, and that's why I ended up making the choices that I chose. And so naturally I'm thinking, oh, if I just explain to them the process I went through to get to this decision over kind of the suggestion that they're making, then they will see and agree that this was the correct way to do it, and this, this implementation makes sense. And some of that just comes from kind of an insecurity, right? We get very attached to our designs and our creations, and so hearing someone make a suggestion that, oh, this could possibly be better if something was different, we can take that very personally sometimes of, well, if it could have been better doing something different and I didn't choose that better route, well, then that reflects on me as a game designer that I didn't most effectively design the game. Which, that's something that in and of itself, that as an effective game designer, we have to learn to suppress. But what I want to talk about today is learning to suppress that other instinct, that instinct to immediately explain away to a playtester why you did something a certain way and why that makes sense over maybe what they're suggesting. Now why is this so important? When you immediately kind of correct a playtester, you have essentially shut down the opportunity to get exactly the thing that you should be hoping to get out of playtesting, which is seeing how people are experiencing your game. I've talked about this before, how, we're not creating games, we're creating experiences. Games are just the medium for which we're creating those experiences for players. And so if players are having a certain kind of experience, that's completely valid regardless of what your desired experience was, or how you felt that maybe they're only having that experience because they didn't do something the way they should in the game. And it's very possible that as they're explaining it, that you might be right with how you're thinking about, yeah, I already thought about this, and there's good reasons why I'm not doing, the thing that they're suggesting. But you need to just allow yourself to listen. And oftentimes in allowing them to kind of give their full thoughts on it, you can uncover some things that are extremely valuable. One, you can uncover where maybe their solution isn't correct. And that's oftentimes the case. What they're suggesting isn't necessarily the right solution, but it comes from a place of their experience with the game. They felt something wasn't quite right. And they think, this solution might fix it. But even if that's not right, the fact that there was something in their experience that wasn't right is something that you want to know, right? There may be another solution that you can find to that problem, but if you immediately shut them down, you might miss that. You might miss that there's kind of this underlying issue that came up for them in the game that you very well may need to address for your game to get better. And so you have to remind yourself, and this is very hard. I mean, if you've ever been in this situation where you feel like your creation is kind of being judged by an outsider and you feel the need to defend. I need to defend the choices I made. I made these choices for a reason. Trust me, like I thought this through. Suppressing that and allowing yourself to really hear where they're coming from. Because while you have more context with the design, you've spent many hours working and thinking and changing things and tweaking and choosing one thing over another in the design, whereas this playtester is potentially seeing this for the first time and having their experience without any of that context. But what you need to remember is that that playtester has something that you don't, which is that they can look at the design without all of that baggage of working on it and all of that context. And it's simply a truth that there are things in your design that because you are so close to it and working on it so much that you are simply blind to and can't see, and you need someone who doesn't have that perspective to be able to help you see this thing that's in your design. And so highly effective game designers, they really embrace this when they're playtesting, seeking first to really understand where their playtesters are coming from. Your job there isn't to convince them why you made the decisions you did, but rather to gather feedback on what kind of experience is this game providing for the players. Remembering that if down the road, if this game is out in the wild, you're not even going to be there for most people that are experiencing the game. And another group very well could have had this same negative experience that's being described to you. And you're not going to be there to explain why, this decision, this was the better thing for the game. They're just going to have their negative experience, or they're not going to feel that a portion of the game worked quite right. So learning how to first seek to understand where your playtesters are coming from, then seek to be understood, and remembering that you don't always have to be understood. You don't need to convince your playtesters of how well you've thought through everything. You need to, you're collecting feedback from them and being gracious and grateful that they're taking the time to give that feedback and spend time with the thing that you've created. And ultimately, if these are playtesters that you think you might have, you'd like them to be helping playtesting on future projects, the best thing you can do is help foster this spirit of just appreciation for playtesting, and also just empowering them to feel very open with their feedback. You want your playtesters to know, I can be as brutally honest about things as I am feeling on the inside, and I know that this designer is going to embrace that and thank me for that and appreciate that and not shut me down or make me feel like I just didn't see something that they saw in the design. So habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I encourage you to think about that in your playtesting. And if you're in a situation where you're playtesting, kind of just remember that in the back of your mind. And it really takes a bite of the tongue sometimes, but that can lead to some of the biggest breakthroughs in where to go in a design when you allow a playtester to really let you see a perspective of the design that you're unable to see on your own. So I'll close with a question, which is, what are just techniques in your playtesting experience that you have found to be effective in getting good feedback from playtesters? Whether that's strategies of how to kind of suppress yourself from doing things that would hinder getting that feedback, or maybe it's really good questions that you feel like bring out the best in playtesters. If you could leave those down in the comments, I'd love to learn from some of your experiences. And if you enjoyed this video and are enjoying the series, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm hoping to put out more content aimed at game designers. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.